Welcome into D. Armstrong on Facebook. We're not live today, and one of the reasons is there is so much going on the internet that we're having a problem doing a live connection. But this is some good information, and it's kind of ironic that I have Steve Okendura with me, who is with NAMI, the National Association of Mental Illness, and we're having this huge conversation about the Las Vegas shooter and whether or not there's speculation about him being mentally ill. Thank you so much for being with us.
Hey Dee, thank you for having me.
We had no idea this topic would be there,
No, sure.
but let's address that, and then we'll go into why he was ultimately here, which is for you to be aware of NAMI and to come out to one of their events. When you see something like this, we have a man who's in his 60s, his family saying, I did not see any signs that something like this would happen, and we're just flabbergasted. Are there always signs? I know you don't know him, his specific case, but in general, are there always signs that someone is internally dealing with something?
It's very difficult to tell. I mean, sometimes there are signs, but sometimes there aren't. Maybe in retrospect, when we move forward, they'll be able to see things, and it's just very difficult. You know, I just feel for those families because they're going to be traumatized by this. And so it's very difficult to say because we don't know their situation. We don't know what his motive was. They're still doing the investigation. So it's very difficult to say. You know, it's terrible that in cases like this, later on, everybody says, oh, hindsight is 20/20, but it's just so unfortunate. And I feel for the families and the victims of this horrendous shooting.
Wow, it is. And one of the things that's they're doing now is really trying to trace his life and trying to see what happened in childhood, what happened as a teenager, what happened that may have led to this, what was he doing around the time that this happened. He has a girlfriend who said she had no idea that this was going to happen. So we're going to continue to follow this. And then there's some people who are just saying it doesn't have to be mental illness. He might have been purely evil. He just might have wanted to kill people, and with a clear mind and a hard heart that he did it. And I don't know if we'll ever know.
Well, exactly. We may never know since he's deceased. And I think, you know, the focus just has to be on the families of these victims because, you know, a lot of times when things like this happen, people say, oh, everybody's going to run and say it was mental illness. And one of the things we always say in NAMI is, even if it's a mental illness, we don't use that to excuse bad behavior. It may explain it, but it's never an excuse.
And that's why you're here. It's for one thing, to encourage people, if you are one of those people. We were talking about this in our green room, who, because I think all of us, if we were honest with the public, we would say at some point in our lives, maybe even more than once in our lives, we felt that our mind was pushed to the edge and we were about to enter something that might have been mental illness. I think we've all seen that at some point. So what do you say to someone who's feeling, I'm not feeling normal, whatever normal is, and I think something is wrong mentally or emotionally?
You know, that's very difficult because there's such a huge stigma attached with mental illness. And a lot of times people don't want to talk to anyone. So it's very difficult for them to say, and what I usually do is I encourage them. I say, well, come to one of our NAMI support group meetings. You may be able to listen. You don't even have to say a word, but just by listening to other people who are struggling or going through their own trials or their own mental health diagnosis, you may feel more open to open up and talk about what you're going through.
Wow. I was watching some of the NAMI PSAs that are put out around the world, literally, and there was one from England, and the last speaker said, I was hallucinating, and I wasn't sure what was real and what wasn't real, but I went to the meetings, got on the proper medications, and I'm doing well.
Yes. That's so important because as some of your viewers may know, and for those who don't, a hallucination is when you start seeing or hearing things that are not there. And some mental experts call it a psychosis, where there is a break from reality. So, and it's so important, like you said, that individual went and got help because there are medical options to help that person. Medications
so whatever
that
is wrong in the brain,
exactly,
to correct what
exactly.
What it is.
The brain is broken and they need help. So because it can be very confusing if you're telling someone, I see someone over there, and they're looking at you like, I don't see the person. But you know, that's an example of a hallucination, and they need to get help.
Wow. So what do you say to different age groups? Because many of them that are doing these PSAs, they saw the mental disturbances starting very young, very young. So we're not just talking to adults.
Exactly.
I guess that's what I'm trying to get to, that we're talking to younger people too.
Yes, and I think with the awareness now, we're seeing more young people who are now getting help. We see it a lot with trauma. Maybe they witnessed something within the household or in general. We're seeing it with ADHD and ADD, of course. And it's important that the parents seek help. There are good professionals out there where they can seek help. And it's just so crucial that they get help for them, because the studies show that the earlier a person gets treatment, the better off they're able to live a fulfilling life.
Wow. Wow, and just briefly tell them, you went through a stage of depression, huh?
Yes.
As a young man, and in the South, being a black male, that was considered a weakness. If you told someone, there's something wrong with me, and then grandma would say, stiffen up, boy.
Go to church.
Go to church, boy.
Pray.
And then those who weren't in the church, you got a spirit on you, boy. You know,
a demon.
I got a demon in you, boy. And that kept a lot of black people in particular from looking for help, and maybe even in the Southern white culture also. But a lot of that is just being blown away, isn't it?
It is.
A lot of that, some of you haven't even heard of that because it's not as prevalent anymore.
It is, and one of the great things is you now see preachers and pastors who are more aware of the fact that this is a professional condition, that this is a medical condition where they need help. It's like, if you had cardiac care, yes, pray if you're a praying person, but still go see the cardiologist. The same thing, if you have diabetes, please go and see your diabetes doctor. And so people are becoming more, when I was growing up, it was very prevalent. I have family members tell me, oh boy, ain't nothing wrong with you. You need to just get in that Bible. And then I became disillusioned. I'm praying, I'm doing I'm fasting.
And it's not changing.
And it's not, what am I doing wrong? God, do you hate me? Exactly.
Oh yeah, wow. So how can we all join in, because you got a big event coming up?
Oh yes, we have the NAMI Walk coming up this Saturday in Atlanta. People can go to NAMI.org, or they can call the NAMI office here locally at 706-320-3755. And what this walk is basically we raise awareness. People come from all parts of Georgia. It's usually a big walk. We have a guest speaker who's usually somebody prominent, and it's a great time. People get to fellowship, meet with other like-minded individuals, and it's just really great.
Well, take a look at this SOT. This is what's happening with some of the people who are willing now to talk about their journey.
That the authorities say
I was about 16 when I was diagnosed with depression. My doctors think that it stemmed from my parents divorcing and struggling with school, really.
It all started when my father died when I was at high school.
It all started in university during my final year.
It all started when I was 16. I came out of a relationship I was in at the time, and I started purging and self-harming.
I first realised I had a mental health problem when I was 15. I was cutting myself every day and crying all the time.
Soon after the attack happened, I started to feel throes of anxiety, panic attacks started creeping in.
I first realised that I had a problem when I really wanted to stop all the things I was doing, but I just couldn't seem to stop no matter how badly I wanted to.
I was suffering from hallucinations, which at the time were really scary because I didn't know what was reality and what was my imagination.
Different kinds of stories. Some of it, can you have a latent probability of mental illness that may not surface unless there's a trauma? Because a couple of people said it was after the trauma that I began to.
Yes, and that's one of the things we say in our group meetings, that it's a medical condition. They may have an environmental trigger. So the person may be seemingly doing well, and then something happens. Like I'm sure with a lot of these folks who were affected in Las Vegas that were there, you know, they're going to have PTSD symptoms. They're going to be startled. Some may hear maybe a muffler go off and be startled because like so many of them said, they thought it was firecrackers. So like in my case, one of the things that my doctor told me was you probably had a predisposition to it because of your family history, and then the trauma just brought it to the surface.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for being with us. I know that you're going to be called on in the next couple of days. A lot of people are going to want to just talk to you. You know, so you're going to be a busy man, But thank you so much for being with us. Is there a cost for the walk in Atlanta?
There is no cost for the walk in Atlanta.
And where is that walk in Atlanta?
It's going to be, I can't remember the name of the park.
It's not Piedmont, is it?
That's it.
Piedmont Park.
Exactly. It's going to be there. And people can go to
Okay.
NAMIWalks.org and they can find out all the information. All people have to do is show up.
Show up.
What we're going to do here is we've got a bus and we're going to have a caravan of people going. We're going to meet at 7 o'clock at the Kmart on the Walmart on Airport Thruway. And by 7 o'clock, we're going to be headed to Atlanta.
Well, thank you so much for being with us. Where can they get this information? What site?
NAMIWalks.org, or they can go to NAMI.org, NAMI.org, and all the information is there.
And thank you so much for being transparent and sharing and allowing all of us to say, you know what, I've been there too. I've been there too, and I'm glad that there was some help. We'll see you tomorrow.